Now, I'm going to make you go back to work and actually get serious here because we've just been having so much fun. But, with WVU playing Oklahoma and playing Texas Tech, the Kliff Kingsbury, the Kyler Murray story, and about how the air raid, or whatever it is, tell us about how is it working in the NFL?
Yeah, first of all, it's not the air raid. It has air raid principles that are in it, but it's not the air raid. I will tell you, when Kliff first showed up in 2019, the first half of 2019, I would say in September, it looked an awful lot like a college offense. It looked an awful lot like an air raid offense. That's where they ran a lot of 10 personnel, of course, didn't have a lot of tight ends. They had, one back, no tight ends, 4 wide receivers. They led the league in a grotesque way in regard to 4 wide receivers early in that year. And they were struggling. And to Kliff's credit, he went ahead and he actually started incorporating tight ends and changed the offense in the second half of 2019, changed that offense. And it got so much better in the second half of the season, in particular, Soda Pop, in the red zone. The red zone, I think, really gave them problems in the first half of 2019, again, because of all the 10 personnel and trying to throw the ball into the end zone for the most part. Hey, listen, you know what? The hash marks are different in the NFL. As you know, they're not nearly as wide as they are in the college game. And it's just better athletes, better players. And because of that, the square footage gets reduced. And it's harder to throw the ball in on your way going in, right? You get inside the 10-yard line, now it becomes very difficult to throw the ball in, let alone the 20-yard line. So I think Kliff had to learn that for himself, but this is not the air raid any longer. He incorporates tight ends. He uses them. There is a lot of 12 personnel. Now, he does more 10 personnel than anybody else in the league. That's a true statement. And he does do some things that are still indicative of the air raid. But I think it's an amalgamation, if you will, of not only the air raid, but also some traditional sets and personnel groups and plays as well. And I think, Soda Pop, I think with the addition the Arizona Cardinals have made offensively, and I think of Rodney Hudson first at the center position. I think of A.J. Green, this big wide receiver. I think of James Conner, the running back, who's a run the ball in between the tackles, a downhill runner, the definition, I would say, of a downhill runner. I think they're going to be more about trying to attack the line of scrimmage than they've been in the first couple of years of Kliff Kingsbury. So I think the offense is still evolving. Does that make sense?
Well, absolutely, because Kliff Kingsbury didn't even have a tight end on his roster at Texas Tech. And they struggled in the red zone. And to be quite honest with you, our WVU people, they know that we struggled in the red zone as well when we were going a lot with the air raid principles and running that. So it makes a lot of sense. You got to use tight ends. The good news is WVU now has 5 tight ends on the roster.
Right, exactly. I love that, Soda Pop.
Scholarship tight ends, I should say.
Yes, at some point in time, never forget this. The whole "we're going to deceive you" it's not a bad way to go. Hey, listen, we're going to run the RPO and we're going to run the zone read, and it's very effective. It's very effective. But when done solely, now all of a sudden I think you got a problem. I think you have to blend the old and the new, especially in the National Football League. You make yourself too simple, I think, to defend when you depend on deceiving. There's nothing wrong with wanting to create deception, but never forget, this is the game of football, Soda Pop, and you know this. It can't be all about deception. It's got to be about destruction. It's got to be about lining up. Your opponent knows the play you're going to run based on the personnel group you're in and the formation you're in. They got a good idea what you're going to go ahead and run. And yet they can't stop it. You know it. I know it. We all know what play is going to be run. And guess what? Sometimes you got to line up and you just got to be better than somebody. And that's a hard thing for a lot of air raid coaches to understand, because they're all about trying to deceive and trick and who's got the ball. And it's the scheme that really matters. It's not the scheme. It's the skill of your players. Your players. It's not about the play. It's about your players. And I think Kliff has done a great job of totally making that adjustment. He's, like I said, they do not run the air raid. There are some air raid principles that are involved in it, but Kliff here's what I love about Kliff Kingsbury. He's smart. He's a smart dude. And not only that, he's got a modicum of humility about him. I don't know about you, Soda Pop, but smart and humble is a good way to go through life.
Yeah, it sure is. I actually got some stories because Dana Holgerson actually was his roommate when they were at Houston, University of Houston. So he got some good stories on him, and yeah, everything about him is legit. Yeah,
Dana was. Oh my goodness, man, that is awesome. I did not know they were roommates.
Yeah, it all comes full circle. But
I'm gonna walk up to him. I'm gonna walk up to Kliff Soda. I'm gonna walk up to Kliff and I'm gonna say, hey, Dana Holgerson, go.
So trust me, he's going to have a lot to say, a lot of good stuff, and probably some funny stuff as well.